I'm here with my husband and my grandson, Jeremy, who wanted to sit and hide in the back there. So this is more of a story from a grandmother to a grandson about something that you learn as you get more adulting experience. My father was not the easiest person. He was not warm and friendly. He was very critical, and I don't think I did one thing right growing up. Even the things I did well, there was always room for improvement. Has anybody else had a difficult parent in their life? Yes, yes. And they're all difficult in their own way. When I was about 8, I was home from school. It was a day off. I was lounging around in the living room. This was before we had 24-hour TV, so children had to kind of like amuse themselves. And as I was rolling around, I found stuffed in the back of the bookcase was another book hidden. And when I pulled it out, it was an album, and many of the pictures were of the family. But there were 2 pages that were clipped together with paper clips. Now, I'm not really sure what adult thought that would stop me from undoing those and looking. And there were 4 pictures on those 2 pages, 3 of which we're not going to talk about because they were very nice pictures of my naked mother, which we will definitely not talk about. But the 4th one was my father in what looked like a kind of white diaper thing next to a Japanese soldier. And when I asked my parents about these, it turned out that my father had been a prisoner of war for 4 years during World War II. And as I grew up, I started to think, I really did not know what that meant, what that experience could have meant. But I kind of started to think about that as maybe that's why my dad isn't the warmest person. My dad's kind of a control person. And he really didn't talk about any of his experiences till he was about in his 60s, and we started to talk about them. And it really was, the more he talked about it, the more I could understand that he may not have been the father I wanted, but he had such a traumatic experience, he couldn't be the father maybe that I wanted. And one day I was looking in his cabinet, and he has a set of little round bamboo plates. And these plates were given to him by the commandant of the prison before they were liberated. And I said to him, you know, we really should see if the British War Museum, no euphemisms in Britain, it's a war museum, would like some of the things you have saved from that time. And in fact, they were extremely happy to get these items. And so I went through cataloging, and I didn't realize till then, when he really started talking, how much stuff that he had. He had, when they were in Hong Kong, which is the first place he was a prisoner, they actually put on plays and tried to act as normal as possible in the confines of a very bad situation. He actually taught himself French while he was a prisoner of war. And one day, he and his best friend, they had been through this whole experience together. They took certain of the prisoners to Japan to work in a steel mill. Unfortunately, his friend Peter, who I knew and heard from as an adult, got very sick. And my father did everything he could to get medicine for Peter, but Peter wasn't deemed well enough to go to Japan. So these 3 boats took off to Japan from Hong Kong. And of course, the Allies didn't know that they were prisoner of war, and they shot down they sank 2 of the ships. So my father's ship was the only ship that actually made it. And his situation became much worse when he was there. And I think the most devastating piece of his collection is his diary. Every day he wrote something in it. He actually used toilet paper from the time for a diary, and he wrote down memories. But every day was something about food. The fact that he was going to get half a cup of rice that day and some watery soup with maybe a vegetable in it. And he wrote, we have the book, he wrote every day, he wrote about his food and who didn't get up that morning. Now, not all the stories, it's funny how human people get to be. He tells a story about the fact that the camp became overrun with flies, and this really bothered the Japanese people. And they put a bounty on flies. So every fly they turned in, they would get something for it. Well, this went on so long that finally the commandant realized that the prisoners were breeding flies in the back of one of the tents so that they could get the money that they wanted, get what they wanted. So it wasn't until so much later that I began to realize, that I don't know how someone goes through that and then is supposed to come home and be a citizen, a family man, and a worker. But they do, and we all have tragedies in our lives, maybe not to that extent, but what I'd like my grandson to know is that there are very little black and whites in the world. As you get older, you realize the world is very gray. People aren't good, they're not bad, they're just shades of gray along the way. And at 20, he thinks he knows everything, and he probably does, but things are not quite as black and white as he would seem. Thank you.